So a while back I made this video talking about how Super Smash Bros. Ultimate doesn't really feel ultimate for me. The game puts more focus on the roster rather than the content. And while the sheer amount of properties in this game is amazing, it leaves me feeling very bored very quickly every time I play the game. The game's main selling point is its roster. But that alone doesn't make it the definitive Smash experience for me as they advertise. I was always under the impression that this would legitimately be the ultimate version of Super Smash Bros. That this would be the culmination of every Smash Bros. Game, featuring all of the best parts of the previous installments, and it feels like that's what they were going for. But it doesn't, and that's what I want it to be. Smash Bros. For me is just as much about the content as it is the platform fighting. To me it's not just a crossover fighting game, it's a crossover game as a whole. An aspect Ultimate has seemingly removed despite its namesake. And with that I wanted to make this video essentially editing the game into something that for me would truly make it feel complete. Now this isn't purely a fixing Ultimate video. I do believe that a lot of the modes that I'll discuss would improve the game and make it better objectively, but this is also just me adding my own personal spin on things. If you want something purely fixing the game, you can see Rotog's 3 videos which this is based on. I understand that a lot of this is unrealistic and rather biased, but this is not meant to be a request to Nintendo or Sakurai, or an affirmation that Ultimate should be like this regarding my personal elements. This is simply my own hypothetical dream of what I wish Ultimate could be if it wanted to live up to its name, while also adding and or modifying things that legitimately would make the game better in real life. First I'll start with fighters. I know this roster is big enough as it is, but there are still a couple of fighters that I would have loved to see make it into the game. Those being Mach Rider, Yunaru Kami, Minato Arisato, Shantae, Rayman, Doom Slayer, Cuphead with Mugman as an alt, Scorpion, Shadow, Silver, Altair, and Master Chief. Cuphead would use the same model as his Mii costume, except he would be cel-shaded to reference the old cartoon animation of his game while still blending in with the style of Smash. Shadow would not be an Echo fighter of Sonic, but a semi-Echo like Isabelle who still has his own unique moves. Scorpion would be based largely on the original Mortal Kombat game from the 90s, with that outfit being his default look. Other outfits like the Mortal Kombat 11 design are alts. While not carrying any of the violence from the Mortal Kombat games, he still carries some of the same violent moves.
Scorpion win fatality.
Same for Doom Slayer. Whether these fighters would be DLC or base game, I don't know. Either way, they're in the game. There are also some fighters I would remove. Those being Dr. Mario, Ridley, and Ken. Dr. Mario is just Mario twice and I don't understand why he's a separate character, so I would reduce him to an alternate costume. Ridley I just don't feel as a fighter. I've always recognized him as a boss character, and seeing him reduced drastically in size just doesn't feel right. I know the whole "he's too big" complaint angered a lot of people and was this big meme, but I genuinely have to agree. Unlike characters like Bowser and Olimar where their sizes aren't particularly their main character trait, Ridley is always known for being a towering monster. And making him small like this just doesn't do the character justice, and I think this is what Sakurai meant when he made that statement a long time ago. Yeah, he was small in the first Metroid, but that was the 80s when they were all pixels. It was just an in-game visual. Ever since then he's always known for being huge, even in-game. So I would instead place him as another boss character reprising his role from Brawl. Ken I would replace with Chun-Li, simply because I feel she's a lot more iconic than he is when it comes to Street Fighter, and I would have loved to have her. With that out of the way, here are some things I would change about the already existing fighters. The Miis would probably have the biggest change. I would separate them into what's essentially a standalone character and a customizable character. The standalone character would be the default character when choosing the Miis. This would have the Mii fighters be their own character, pulling moves from various Mii games, with their default look being the starter Miis in Mii Maker. Their series emblem would be the Mii logo, while their victory theme would be a rendition of the Mii Maker theme.
Speed Brawler, win!
They would even have their own music section like everyone else, including all of the Mii songs like Wii Sports, Miitopia, the Mii Maker theme, etc. All of which are now removed from the other section. And to top it off, they have their own classic mode route. Customizing them would be a secondary option. It's the exact same as it is now except for 3 things. You can switch whether you want to keep their default moveset, or use the ones that we're familiar with now. This time around you can give them any of the fighters' victory themes, including the Smash original one, which is now just an optional music choice. And you can change the color of all Mii costumes. Not just the Smash original outfits, but all costumes. Sonic would have a pretty significant moveset change where he would take more attacks from his many games rather than curling into a ball 100 times. And instead of being voiced by Roger Craig Smith, he would continue to be voiced by Jason Griffith. In fact, his entire model would remain the same from Brawl. A really good representation of this is the mod made by GrizzX. That's basically the Sonic we would have in this version of Ultimate.
Yes! You're too slow! Come on, step it up!
His final smash would be a lot more akin to Diddy Kong's final smash, where he'll zip around the entire screen before stopping in the middle and turning back to normal, which will produce a much more explosive hitbox that covers more distance. Shadow would of course also be voiced by Griffith, and Silver would be reprised by his Sonic 06 voice actor. Duck Hunt's final smash would be more like the Fly Swatter assist trophy, where he shoots the fighters like ducks in the original game. He'll jump off screen to where then the camera will pan out to match the camera of the original game. Then a target reticle will appear as the fighters are being shot at. It starts off slow before gradually becoming a lot more rapid to the point where it's extremely hard to avoid, hitting everyone on screen. And then after a few seconds there's a huge explosion at the end with a big target reticle which hits everybody, while simultaneously a giant, non-pixelated Duck Hunt strikes the same pose he does when catching a duck, with the same tune playing. The entire final smash is automatic. Both Pokemon trainers would have their canon names of Red and Leaf. Red's voice respectively would be reprised by the voice actor in Pokemon Origins.
That's right, it wasn't really a tough decision. The thing is, my dad gave me the name Red, hoping that when I grew up, it would help me have the passion and energy of a red-hot fire. So now I've decided that my first Pokemon should be a fire Pokemon that will help me live up to the name my father gave me.
During battle they talk more and more frequently, make movements aside from the simple pointing and running around. Joker would no longer have the Persona 3 or 4 victory screens, as those would have been transferred to Minato and Yu for their victories. Instead, he now has a Persona 1 and 2 victory for the Mementos variants. He and the others' series emblem would now be a purple butterfly instead of the Phantom Thieves logo. And lastly, whenever Arsene is summoned he will now say a quick line like this.
Power of mine is yours.
Now on to stages. Firstly, Minato and Yu both have their own stages separate from Mementos but very similar to it. Respectively the Dark Hour and the Midnight Channel. Each also have their respective team members show up in the background just like the Phantom Thieves. A new stage to go along with the Mii Fighters is the Mii Plaza from the original Mii Maker. It's a flat terrain like the Fire Emblem Coliseum stage where a bunch of Miis will walk around in the background, some even coming to watch the fight before walking away again, and repeat. In the far background would be silhouettes of different Miis being created in the standard Mii Maker format, with the UI also being a silhouette. To add to the list of Mii songs, all of the Mii Maker themes up to the Wii U will be songs on this stage. Now I could just say that every Smash stage from every game should be brought back no matter how bad or good, and that will probably be the case. But the one stage that I personally want back is Pac Maze from Smash 3DS. Not only that, but all of the previous battlefields and final destinations. These would function just like Mementos, where the Smash Ultimate battlefields and final destination will change into the previous incarnations depending on what music is playing. They even have their own Omega and Battlefield forms. One stage I would like to swap out is Windy Hill Zone. This would be replaced with a more iconic and unique location from the Sonic games as to not be a Green Hill clone. Whether it be one of the other classic games, the Sonic Adventure Duology, Sonic Unleashed, etc. Although personally I think I would pick a modern stage so there's representation for both eras. Lastly, Summit would be modified to more accurately represent the original game. Something like their target test in Melee. Next is modes and general content. Each of the following will return: Smash Run, Events, Break the Targets, Boss Rush, and most importantly a story mode, which I'll talk about last. Modified ones would be All-Star Mode, Classic Mode, and Movies. Smash Run now has a new map layout with a different design, and features more enemies from more games while replacing a couple of the existing enemies. Mostly Kid Icarus and Kirby enemies, as I feel like there was too much of them. The mode is also now playable online. While it would be very cool for Break the Targets to be unique for every fighter as it was in 64 and Melee, as said by someone else, it might be overkill given the much larger number of characters. So instead it would be the same as it is in Brawl. But the music from Melee would be used again, and I'd like for the aesthetic to return as well instead of Brawl's more landscape type design. So it's Brawl's target mode but with Melee's aesthetic and music. Boss Rush remains the same, only now it's all of Ultimate's bosses, and a few others which again I'll get into later. All-Star mode is returned to its former glory, being the same as it was in Brawl and Smash 4. And Movies not only includes all of the revealed trailers from Ultimate, but every revealed trailer from Brawl to Smash 4. Hell, maybe even the short character videos from Melee, and Ultimate itself. The bonus stage in Classic mode would instead cycle between one of the 3 bonus games from the previous installments. Those being Break the Targets, Board the Platforms, Race to the Finish, and Ultimate's bonus game. Right before you get to the credits, I would really love if they brought back the Toy Room segment from 64, where the fighter, this time as a trophy instead of a plush, is dropped onto a desk as the child leaves the room. Except the room would be different entirely, signifying how the child is now older. I always thought it was a nice touch on the lore and a sweet ending. Lastly, a mode I would remove from the game is Super Sudden Death. This mode has always felt redundant considering you already have the option to set everyone's damage to 300% in normal battles. Now before getting into the story mode, I want to get the more minor details and nitpicks out of the way. Spirits now have descriptions like trophies. Pit's final smash remains as the 3 sacred treasures. As iconic as his Smash voice actor is, I would personally like to see Captain Falcon's GX voice actor reprise his role. With better voice direction of course.
Let's settle this at the Grand Prix. Not like this. It's the coward's way. Black Shadow, I'll show you. You'll never beat me. Not if I can help it. I'll destroy you yet. Let's go.
Ike is still voiced by Jason Adkins.
Prepare yourself.
Bowser and Donkey Kong have their original voices instead of animalistic ones. Cloud and Sephiroth have their English voices like everyone else, voiced by Steve Burton and George Newbern respectively.
Not interested. Weak. No hard feelings.
Shall I give you despair? Come after me. Rest in peace. Say goodbye. I will never be a memory.
There's not a thing I don't cherish.
Stay where you belong, in my memories.
A new alt for Snake would be his outfit from Metal Gear Solid 1, and an alt for Mario would be his color scheme from the NES game. Donkey Kong, Ness, Ice Climbers and Yoshi all keep their victory themes from Melee.
Donkey Kong wins! Ness wins! Captain Falcon wins! Yoshi wins! Ice Climber wins!
Palutena's guidance and Snake's Codex cover all characters. The Wii Remote sound effects from Brawl return in Ultimate when selecting a fighter, only it comes from in the game and not the controller.
Sonic
Sonic's the name, speed's my game.
We're gonna have fun with this thing.
Playtime ends here, Starfox.
Piece of cake! I'm really feeling it. This is the Monado's power! Monado, save us from harm! Monado, shield us! Monado, basta! I'll smash you up! Jump! Split edge! Ah! Split edge! Ah!
And finally, a more moderate change would be the theme of Ultimate itself. Personally, I never really felt anything for Lifelight when I first heard it, unlike the opening themes for Melee and Brawl. But when I heard the theme of Final Destination and Battlefield in reverse for the first time, something just struck me. I don't know why, but there is just something about the melody in reverse that hits different for me. I don't know why, but I just feel more emotion. As if there's something more dramatic and epic about it. Especially when I heard segments like this. In short, everything with the Lifelight leitmotif, including Lifelight itself, has the reversed melody instead. I know, it's a weird change, but I don't care. Why do you think my name is Anomaly? Anyways, along with this I would change the general intro as well, and make it something equivalent to Melee's intro? Or even Dissidia Final Fantasy's intro. Now time for the biggest mode of all. To me, the biggest thing holding Ultimate back from achieving its namesake is the grand return of a story mode akin to that of Subspace. Something I have desperately yearned to return for ever since Smash 4. Now this is not replacing World of Light by any means, rather it's modifying it. Instead of the glorified board game that we have, World of Light is the platforming side-scroller, cutscene-filled adventure that we've always wanted. Here I'll refer to it as the World of Light expansion. The basic story of the expansion is the same as World of Light, but it's now expanded upon to scale up into an hour or so long story, hence the name. In other words, it's given a legitimate plot and a heavier focus on said plot like Subspace. We'd once again see characters interacting on screen, unique team-ups, dramatic action sequences, emotional scenes, etc. Including the 7 original cutscenes of World of Light which are still there. In fact, there is now a prologue to explain how the characters all ended up on the cliff together in the first place and just where Galim came from. There is also one big key difference in this story unlike Subspace. This story would now include voice acting.
This isn't going well.
Don't hold back. We have to survive.
Focus pit.
This one's tough! No way!
This was already in the first World of Light cutscene, so it makes sense that the rest of the story likely would have the other characters talking as well. Some characters would be unique in how they talk, such as Isabelle or Banjo and Kazooie for instance, who would speak using subtitles. While of course characters like Piranha Plant or Pikachu wouldn't speak or have subtitles at all. The gameplay is the same as Subspace in that it's a platforming side-scroller, but it has its differences and includes elements inspired by World of Light's gameplay. Spirits are scattered throughout these levels and act like the yellow orbs in the bonus game. You have to collect them in order to add them to your inventory within the pop-up menu. One thing I would like to add when this happens is the spirit having a small piece of dialogue upon being rescued. Not to say that they will actually speak, but there would be little text at the bottom of the screen. And they would react differently depending on who they're rescued by. These wouldn't be mini cutscenes as that would be overkill to pause for every single spirit you collect, but you can see it when you go into your inventory. I want spirits to actually feel like they're a part of the adventure instead of just being lifeless PNGs, and I think this is a good way to do so. Spirit battles can still be implemented as pop-up battles or mandatory battles to progress to the next section of the level, but unlike World of Light, it's not the entire campaign but only sparse obstacles. It's like how you would encounter the links in Melee's adventure mode. Another more significant change is the pop-up menu that can now be utilized during levels. It's the exact same as World of Light, except you can now use this menu to select up to 4 fighters to swap in and out of at will, instead of only being limited to 1 character per level. Though this is dependent on who you have unlocked. 3 icons would be seen at the top of the screen, and all you have to do is select one of them. In fact, you can even have one or all 3 follow you as CPUs. Think of it like Tails in Sonic 2, or how characters follow you in LEGO games. However, swapping characters will not change your damage or stock, and if you lose your last stock then it's a game over just the same. I really want to bring out the crossover aspect in this game, which is why I want to implement a lot of these concepts. Including this next edition where the levels are no longer Smash original lands, but actual locations from each fighter's games. I have to agree with the general opinion that the levels in the Subspace Emissary felt fairly bland. Only in that they didn't fully utilize the potential in having all of these properties in one game. They gave us these generic lands and only left the crossover aspect within the interaction of the characters. Subspace is the exception because it's the realm of the final boss who of course isn't from any game, but is the one affecting all of these other games. It's specifically meant to be an unfamiliar and rather purgatory-like location, as where every other level could have been so much more. And this time around it would make complete sense given that Galim and Darkon fused all of their worlds together. That's not to say that I don't want any Smash original levels at all, I just prefer them to be more sparse. After all, this is still the Smash Bros. Universe. not just fanservice land. With that out the way, I don't have any particular idea for every level that should be used besides the basics like Mario, Zelda, Metroid, and Kirby. But the ones I would personally love to see are a Sonic level, a Persona level, and a Metal Gear Solid level. The first level of the campaign before any game worlds would be the Light Realm, but it eventually goes into the other levels. Each level would not only have enemies from said game, but puppet fighters as well. The subspace enemy equivalents of this mode. They're similar to the Rob Sentry enemies, but with other characters. 2 extra levels which come towards the end of the campaign are the Dark Realm and the Twilight Realm, which are both this mode's subspace equivalent. The enemies here would be Ga-Leem and Darkon's light and dark clones. The Twilight Realm is the final level of the campaign and naturally leads to Ga-Leem and Darkon. Speaking of bosses, of course there are bosses all throughout this mode the same as subspace. Besides all of the bosses already present, I don't know who else there would be, but once again, bosses I would personally love to see are a Metal Gear boss, Eggman, the return of Porky or maybe even Mother 1 Gygas, Metal Face, and Gruntilda. Ridley, as I mentioned earlier, would also be a returning boss. In fact, another returning boss I would really love to see is Taboo. Considering Taboo also has a spirit battle, implying that Ga-Leem has also captured Taboo's body, I think it would be epic if during the story he sent out a copy of Taboo as the penultimate boss of the campaign, where you fight him in a portion of the Dark Realm within the Twilight Realm. A huge throwback to the Subspace Emissary. Not that I want pure fanservice. I genuinely think it would make for a cool penultimate boss. Almost like they're haunting the fighters with their past enemy. As for the boss battle for Ga-Leem and Darkon themselves, that remains unchanged. Once traversing the Twilight Realm you reach a distorted final destination where the final battle ensues. The only thing I would change is the portion where you re-battle all of the bosses. Considering the higher number present, that would once again be overkill. Taboo is the only penultimate boss. And instead you would just go straight to Ga-Leem and Darkon. And with that, that pretty much wraps up my hypothetical more complete version of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. While it certainly wouldn't have been anything to this degree, I really wish we could have gotten more out of this game. I think the best thing they could have added was a story mode to finish the game off, and that would have been enough for me to really call this game Ultimate. But alas, the roster was the sole focus this time around. Someone brought up a good point in saying that this game really should have kept its Japanese title, because it's only that special. Meanwhile, Ultimate implies that it's the finale, and therefore would have everything in it. But here we are. There are a ton of other things I would modify, change, and add, such as music tracks and other minor details. But I don't want to get into the nitpicking side of things. I only wanted to cover the pivotal changes and modifications. If there is ever another game in the series, I get the feeling that it'll be the exact opposite and put more focus on the modes than the roster, creating the same problem but reversed. And then if it finally gets a story mode, it won't be nearly as grand as it could have been with Ultimate. I'm afraid when it comes to Smash, there will just never be a balance.